What is your name?
Randy Tovey.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the Vietnam War?
I was drafted.
How many years were you there?
I was in Vietnam for just less than 10 months. I was in the military for approximately 2 years.
Okay. What was your rank?
When I was discharged, I was an E4, Specialist 4th Class.
What was like your main job?
In Vietnam, I was an infantryman.
How old were you when you were drafted?
I was 20 years old.
Where were you at that point in your life? Were you going to school or anything?
Yes, I was going to college.
Where did you serve? Like which areas?
I served in the area around Cameron Bay, and I served north of Da Nang, Phu Bai, Hue, up to Quang Tri, excuse me, Khe Sanh, near the DMZ.
Describe Vietnam, like the climate, the weather, and everything else.
When I arrived, it was the hottest place I'd ever been in my life, and the humidity was overwhelming. But the different assignments, different areas where we were assigned, we were in mountainous area where it was nights were cool and comfortable. We were in triple canopy jungle. We were in lowland areas. A lot of times we patrolled near hamlets, cornfields. We worked areas where around certain fire bases that I was assigned to, where the land looked similar to eastern Oregon, eastern Washington, if you can believe it. Also, we were in areas along the coastal regions. There were beautiful beaches. The mountain country was beautiful, beautiful streams and fish, if you can believe it. And so I saw quite a bit of the central and north part of Vietnam. Part of the time I was there in the area around Hue and Phu Bai, we were out in the mountains and it was cold, bitter cold, freezing cold, sleet, freezing rain, below freezing temperatures, and so I got to experience the whole climate.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a beautiful country, undeveloped, beautiful mountains and trees and forest and jungle, and I imagine it has a lot of resources that could be developed.
Mm-hmm. What are your living conditions like your housing, your food, and your hygiene?
By the time I was in Vietnam, towards the end of the war, a lot of the rear areas, the rear bases, were well used, run down, dirty. When we were in the field, we'd be assigned, we'd fly out on helicopters for 30 days out into the mountains or the jungle, and there it was just like camping. Slept on the ground every night. We didn't have air mattresses or sleeping bags or tents. We just what you could carry, and you just lay down at night on the ground. And nights that you didn't have to go out on patrol or ambush, you could probably get 4 hours of sleep. You had to do guard duty every night, and so the conditions were pretty rugged, pretty rustic. No fires. For a lot of the time I was in the bush, we weren't resupplied water. I was in a recon group where we went in small groups, 5 or 6 men to maybe as many as 12 men, and we would take enough sea rations or long-range patrol freeze-dried meals for 3 or 4 days. In good conditions, we'd get resupplied. The food was bad. It was sea rations, and it was terrible. You had to learn to sort through it and eat the good stuff. But it was pretty basic living on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
dirty, 30 days without a change of clothes. Oftentimes we would be transported, helicopters would come pick us up every 4 or 5 days and move us to another location.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a 30-day mission, we would go into a rear area for a 3-day stand down, or we would go to a fire base. And on the fire base, we would have duty where we would fix fence and wire all day outside the perimeter.
So is that like your
patrolling.
recreation time, kind of?
No recreation time. Probably every 3 months we'd get a typical 3-day stand down where you could get a haircut, maybe go to the PX, come to a rear area where there was a semblance of civilization, get new clothes, things like that.
Do you think the people in the U.S. had any idea like what the military was like at that time?
We tried to describe. People would write letters, and you would try to, send a description, and pictures. Most people, of course, in those days we didn't have cell phones, or we had a little Instamatic Kodak camera that you could carry with you, and the film had to be sent and developed, so you could take pictures. There were some of my friends had more upgraded cameras where they could take pretty good photographs, but most of the people didn't have any idea what the issue was, why we were there, what the conditions were like. It was hard to explain to people back home what the people in Vietnam were going through and what their condition was like.
The political climates.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did you get letters and news from home?
When I was in the bush, resupply helicopter would come out every 3 or 4 or 5 days, depending on the weather, and they would bring they'd bring a mail bag, a nylon bag, and they would just pitch it out, throw it out with your resupply, and it would have letters, packages from home, and then in turn we could write letters and put them in the bag, and they would hoist it back up on a helicopter or take it in the helicopter with them. And so we could get mail, we could get letters from home within a week. We could correspond, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
Could be out in the middle of the bush, and you could get a package of cookies from home and all smashed and pounded, but you could get things from home in a short time.
Did you ever get anything from home?
Yeah, I got, my mother sent a cake, my favorite cake, and it was all smashed like that and come apart in pieces, but it was really good. She sent me a little pint bottle of raspberry jelly. And when I opened the package, I ate it on the spot. I ate it without stopping, without crackers or anything. It was so delicious.
Were you old enough, or do you think mature enough to understand the political climate that was going on at the time, and like why you were there?
Yes, I had attended college for 2.5 years. I had 5 semesters of college. I had laid out a semester to work, and because it was such a hot news item, it was fairly well reported. And by the time I served, towards the end of the Vietnam engagement,